So one of the things that has come out over the last couple of weeks are these loans. And yet the White House's pushback is, yeah, they were a loan and we're just paying them back. The thing that I find interesting is when you give someone a loan, even if it's a family member, you would write that down. I give Jim Jordan $5,000. He agrees to pay me back, even without interest. But I'd want something from you. I trust you. You know that. But I'd want something that shows that I made that transaction. How important is it to establish that there's a lack of transparency on this, and that if it's a loan, show me something that an email, something that shows that there's a loan happening. Right. Because right now that seems to be the missing piece from the Democrats' argument.
Yeah, no, they would argue, well, we wrote loan repayment on the check, so that covers it all. That's their defense. So no, you're exactly right, and the American people get this.
But but can I just real quick? There's one of the things that I heard that's really interesting is either it's a loan. To your point, like maybe there's no. Let's just say hypothetically, it's all on the up and up. He loaned him $40,000 or $100,000 or whatever it was, and he wrote it back. Fine. Then by law, by IRS standards, that's taxable funds because it's over the $17,000, right? So it's got to be one or the other, right?
Yeah. No, I agree. I don't think they can prove it. That it was really a loan. No one has produced any evidence, and they just say, "Oh no, it was." We just take our word for it, kind of approach. That I don't think that's going to fly with the American people, particularly when you couple it with everything else, where Joe Biden said he had no involvement with his son or his son's business partners and associates. Well, then we find out there's multiple dinners, multiple phone calls, multiple meetings he had with Hunter Biden and the people he's or his partners and people he did business with. And of course, the most important one is the meeting he had with the wealthiest woman in Russia, Miss Baturina, who then meets with Joe Biden, has dinner. And then somehow she escapes the sanctions. I mean, the timing of that is really amazing. $3.5 million comes from this lady to Hunter Biden and his business partners. And then a week later, Russia invades Crimea. This is February 2014. And then 2 weeks later, there's the sanctions. She is not, Shazam, she's not on the sanction list. And then the month later, in April of 2014, Hunter Biden gets put on the board of Burisma. That meeting takes place in Italy with Zolochevsky, the head of Burisma. And guess who's also at the meeting? This Russian woman. This Miss Baturina, like that seems strange to me. That's when this whole thing started to roll with this influence issue that they were doing and selling the brand. So I find that interesting. And Joe Biden's in the middle of all that, and he told us that he had nothing to do with it. So again, multiple times the story has changed, but so I think the country has already kind of figured this out. But we want to get these last few witnesses in and get their depositions under oath.
But don't you agree that I think that the point that I'm trying to make to you is the following, which is let's just assume that everything you just laid out is a coincidence. Okay. Yeah. The loan, if it's not a loan, is therefore then a violation of tax law. You didn't pay taxes on it. Yep. So it's got to be one of the two. And therefore, say to the Democrats, pick your poison. Which law did you break? You get to pick. Because either you violated this or you violated tax law. But I think that, we lay out this exactly what you laid out. And some people say, well, that's all coincidence. Fine. Then it must be another violation. But the point is that they have to choose which poison they want to take. I think that's a compelling case. They did one or the other, but it can't be none.
Can't be both. So tell us which one it is. And if it's taxes, show us your tax return where you showed it as income and you pay taxes on it, or show us the loan agreement where it was actually a loan. And frankly, where's the first check? If it's a loan repayment, where's the loan initially going? Show us that check.
So don't you think from a messaging standpoint that the case that you just laid out, and I agree with you, but it takes a while and you have to follow the bouncing ball. And I agree. I mean, that's the beauty of this elaborate thing that they put it together. But I think that from an American people's standpoint and making the case for impeachment, you can easily just say, okay, if you don't buy that, then it is tax fraud. It is a violation of tax law. So show us either the payment and the check that was the original loan, or that you paid it on your taxes. But to your point, I just think that for the majority of people that think that this is, just going after Joe Biden, we have a simple sell, which is fine. Yeah. Tell us then if it's not, here is the easiest way to disprove that. And there you go.
Great point. And I think that'll be part of, as we move forward, part of the key discussion. And we'll continue, as I said, to dig into this and get more information. I mean, remember, the best testimony we've got thus far was from Devin Archer, Hunter Biden's business partner. We've yet to talk to the other 5 business partners. So we need to do that. we think, again, a vote for an official impeachment inquiry by the full House, where a majority goes on record supporting that, will help us get those people in a much quicker and timely way so we get that information.
One other point that's been brought up to me is that a lot of people, and again, I don't know this is true. You guys have the investigative power and the subpoena power and the investigators. But people have said, okay, he made all these improvements on this Rehoboth Beach house, et cetera. Why aren't we calling in contractors to say how and who paid you for all these improvements on his house? That might be a way that he was getting payment for things without revealing it. Is that something that you guys are looking at?
Well, right now, it's largely the banks getting information into the oversight committee on the transactions. You know, we had this 2 weeks ago, this from this Asian American bank, where one of the compliance officers inside the bank said, this huge payment, there's millions of dollars coming from CEFC, the Chinese energy company, into one of the Biden entities, one of the Biden business entities. It raises all kinds of concerns. I thought the key line in there was where this compliance officer said that, you know, China is trying to influence children of politicians in the United States, trying to gain influence on them. So in some ways we say, oh, this was always Hunter Biden shaking down these. Maybe it was going the other direction. This is foreign interests trying to have influence with important people in our country, which is really scary, particularly when you're talking about an energy company associated with communist China.
So I got two more things to get to you. The first is, give me a timeline. So this inquiry passes the floor and it moves forward. Would you expect a final vote on an impeachment to happen? And do you think that even if it passes the House, that there's any chance it moves into the Senate?
Well, I think it's driven by the key people we need to talk to. Now, we're talking to Leslie Wolf, who was the assistant U.S. attorney, talking to her, on Thursday. We think that's an important interview. And then we have these folks who did business with Hunter Biden. We think those all happen in early to mid-January. So I do believe at some point we will have the evidence we need to make a final decision. And we'll just look at all the evidence, look at all the facts and say, are we moving forward with articles? Is it a bribery? Is it an abuse of power? Is it obstruction? What are the charges if, in fact, we move forward? And we will have to make a decision as a House of Representatives on whether we're going to go forward with actual articles. And if the evidence is there, we'll do it. If the evidence isn't, we won't. But what I do know is thus far, I think the evidence is already pretty darn compelling when you lay out the Burisma timeline and the actions he took as vice president. And then I think that pattern continued, that influence peddling pattern continued, because they saw, wow, what a deal. And they kept it going. The scary thing is that line in that from the compliance officer talking about foreign countries trying to get influence over politicians by giving sweetheart deals to their kids. That's scary because that happens in 2018 when China may have been thinking, oh, Joe Biden may be the next president. Let's do this. So that's scary. So I think this pattern we already sort of have, but we want to talk to these last few people.